hello. How's everyone doing today? Sog says yeet. Keezy says long time no see, and Azure asks who this? Good question. Who is Keezy? Or is it Kezi? Kezi Thun? Kezi Thun? Perhaps we'll never know. Account created January 17th, 2015. Get doxxed, nerd. What else we got? Lemuria, as usual. He says he's got a lurk. Okay. Wizrad here. A hype stream for me. I'm blushing. Yes, for you. We got Lewis. Anyone else gonna trickle in? Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to today's Minecraft stream. Type says, damn it, the only time my internet is having problems. It'd be like that sometimes. Flush derpy emoji 1. I don't know, make one. Giga Chad derpy emoji. Sock says, what? Yeah, Minecraft stream. Totally happening right now. Let me open it up. I was playing Minecraft last night for the first time in a long time. I was like, I'm getting an itch to play Minecraft. So I started a new world. But that is not actually what we're doing today. Today, as I said in stream chat on Discord, we're gonna do a little winging. We're gonna wing it in terms of the high reveal stuff. So I thought this was a Destiny stream. It can be all these things and more. Kerbal Space Program stream? No, I don't have a Kerbal Space Program. Benny says, hello, y'all. One Piece review, says Lewis. We'll be here a while, if that's the case. When we asked, we'll be reviewing some pull quests. I thought you were lurking. Why are you asking questions? No, we're not reviewing pull quests. Vision, or Azure says, Delta V stream. Yeah, we can go to Solus and test out the plasma engines. That's your Delta V stream. We can talk about realism. No, we're not. We're not going to be talking about realism. Let me get rid of this starting soon. We're already started here. What's stream about? A boot, says Aragi. We're going to be talking about high reveal and the changes I have planned. Wizrad says, I, however, will be reviewing pull requests tomorrow. Shameless plug. Exactly. If you want to see pull requests get reviewed, watch Wizrad stream tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, which will be approximately 4 hours from now, but tomorrow, so 28 hours from now. Complete rewrite, says Azure. We're getting there. We're getting there. Anyway. So, I guess we'll just jump right into it. So when we first reviewed High Reveal, at least the first couple times, however many times we went through that thing, one of the pain points that I had pointed out was that the introduction didn't feel the best. There were some of the big issues was it happens too quickly after the main campaign is complete. It's very handholdy. Things kind of just happen for reasons to push the plot forward without much story justification for it. So, for example, let's say you had never met the High before. When you saw the news of that guy talking about the High, your player character's first instinct was to travel to... I'm forgetting the name of the planet, but it's where Megaparsec is based out of. You go up there. It's not Solus, is it? I don't know. Solus is down south. I just talked about Solus. Whatever the planet is, I'm forgetting its name. Your character's just like, I'm gonna go up here. And then you, like, walk into a bar, and you're like, that person looks like they know what they... Yeah, Sunracer says Benny. That person says they know... Or that person looks like they know a thing or two. You go to the person, and they're like, I know exactly what you want. Go to here, and then you just go there. And then you show up in high space, and it does this disjointed mission conversation thing where it runs first contact, then runs a separate mission after that that makes it look like it's part of the first mission. But like I said, it's disjointed, which I always hate when it's done without good justification for it. The only good place that I think it's done in the game right now is when you get knocked out during the Wander campaign when you show up at Farpoint. But in any case, then that leads you on a very hands-holdy tour of high space. Similar to the news, where you're like, oh, I feel like going here. It's like, oh, I feel like going here. I feel like going there. How about I go here now? And like, it's very, very, not good. That's the main focus for today. Is going to be looking at how we can change that. And I'll actually just start with the, I'll read what I've read a couple times before, which is my post on one of these issues about high reveal. Oh, not that brown. There we go. There we go. And something I will say now, for everybody to, I don't know, maybe get excited about. I spoke with Gray, and the plan will be, with high reveal, to release high reveal in parts. Similar to how, say, the Wander campaign has been done, where, or had been done when MZ was still out working on it, where every major update, a new part of the storyline will be released. So the whole thing will not be available in version 0.10.1. Only the introduction, as it has been reworked. Then, as we move forward with the rest of the campaign and continue to rework things and make sure everything fits together and looks good, those parts will be released and whenever a release happens. So the next release where after this one at the end of the month, which, by the way, end of the month, 0.10.1, that's the plan. The 21st, we're going to freeze the repository, basically. We're going to stop merging things that are new. We're only going to be merging fixes to stuff that already exists. And any tweaks that might need to happen with stuff that exists as well. Then, the 28th, give or take a day, is going to be the release date. That's the plan right now. And that will include High Reveal's introduction. What do you guys think about that? Because no way we're getting through the entirety of High Reveal in 3 weeks. Even if I hadn't gone on my little rampage of closing old Pua quests. And I was just focusing on High Reveal. Even then, I don't think we would have gotten through the whole thing. Azure says, not sure about releasing it in parts, to be honest. So you think we should release it all at once? Okay, I hear you. Lewis says, no High Reveal in 1 hour. Azure says, because I feel like changes to the early parts will probably be needed as progress is made. Why, though? Sog says, will this take precedent over any other large content additions until High Reveal has been fully released? Something, let me cook. Gegno missions every major patch. No, this is not the only major content thing that's going to happen. It's just that this is the plan for High Reveal, is to release it in parts. Azure says, honestly, I feel like High Reveal fits best as an intro campaign to the High, giving you a choice between Wanderers and the Unfettered instead of a huge free world-sized campaign. Well, does releasing it in parts not allow this to aim toward that? So something I'll note, the current introduction to High Reveal is, I think, 27 missions. Something about that. My current draft is 15. So I know that when I was talking with Gray about some of the changes I planned, he said something like, oh, I guess it's not going to be a really small campaign anymore. But I'm thinking the exact opposite. I think that part of some of the changes I want to make is actually going to reduce the overall size of the campaign. Because I do want to make it a bit more pointed toward specific plot points, or a bit more focused on specific plot points. Whereas right now, there are certain aspects of High Reveal that are very broad. Like, for example, a bit of a spoiler warning, I guess, to some of my plans. Unordered currently has an open pull quest that adds more missions, or at least one more mission, to High Reveal to help explain the Korith to a player who might not have known about them from the main campaign, because it's possible to get through the main campaign and not know about the Korith. The reason this mission exists is because the Korith are mentioned at some point. I don't even want the Korith to be involved, though. So, that extra bit that Unordered has planned, along with any existing bits that are dealing with the Korith, I want to toss those. Araki says that Fuel and Coalition push back again. No, I still want to get to that as well. But yeah. Araki says Horseman rules the nukes the philosophy section or whatever it is. Yeah. Azure says, yeah, I'm not really sure about Hyrule spilling over into the core. Something scope creep. Araki says, agreed. Let Argonians be. Yeah. So it's something we don't need everything tied with everything. Yes. Azure says, though, not sure about releasing it in parts, to be honest, because I feel like changes to the early parts will probably be needed as progress is made. I don't think so. Because the part of the rework, like, I'm not just making the intro without any regard for what's coming next. I'm making the intro, or remaking the intro, with the expectations I have in mind for how the rest of High Reveal is going to be. Will changes need to be made? Maybe. But they're not going to be massive enough that it would discount us releasing High Reveal in parts. That is to say, I'm not going to get 3 chapters into High Reveal and then be like, oh wait, I need to completely redo the introduction to make this work. No, the introduction is built with the plans in mind for the later stuff. Now granted, a lot of those plans for the later stuff are a bit up in the air at the moment. Like, I don't know 100% what's staying and what's going. But I do know that I also want the introduction to confine the later story. So the introduction is the stage setting. It's creating our foundation. Everything else should build off of that. So we shouldn't, if we find ourselves doing things where we're thinking, oh, we need to change the introduction to make this fit, we maybe should just toss that. We shouldn't be changing the introduction to make later stuff fit. We should toss the later stuff that doesn't fit with the introduction. Warpcore says, that doesn't sound very iterative of you. Good. But yeah, I'm not going to reread this entire comment again, because I've read this comment like 3 or 4 times on stream before. But this is issue 8268. Talking about how the gap between Free Worlds and High Reveal is too short at the moment. I gave a bit of a blurb about what I think should be changed. And the main gist of it is, it shouldn't happen too quickly after the Free Worlds campaign, because we do need a bit of a breather for the player. When you see the news report, that should not give you any destination or any objective. That's just a hint of, hey, there's something going on here. This is similar to the bombing conversation, where, hey, Martini and Geminus have been nuked. It's our very initial stage setting. It's the event that puts everything in motion, but it does not itself kick the player into action. After that, the way you get into the actual storyline, given that you're no longer kicked into it by the news report, is going to be through a character that you know from the main campaign. In this case, since we only have the Free Worlds campaign finished, it'll be Alonda that you get the hang of, or who introduces you to the storyline. And it's also going to be written in such a way that once the introduction is finished, once you complete the introduction, we should no longer have to worry about which main campaign you completed. Because I want the introduction to also not just serve as an introduction to the storyline, but also serve as an introduction to each of the characters who you'll be interacting with throughout the campaign. On top of that, there's not going to be as much hand-holdy stuff going on. You're actually going to be being given missions by characters in the world instead of your character thinking, oh, I think I should go here next. And the progression of the rising action is not going to be as quick during the introduction. Things will start to kick off pretty swiftly after the introduction is done, most likely, but the introduction itself is not where things pop off. Then finally, that kind of just wraps everything together, where now with this new set of introduction missions, going forward, things make more sense than they do now. Well, of course, this is very boring. Someone ping me when he's finished and I'll stream more Endless Sky gameplay. Azure says, what about changes to the overall scope? Will those be planned out at the start? Because we could end up with a situation where we want to make the campaign shorter, but the intro is already huge compared to what we have to add. Or compared to what we want to add. What about changes to the overall scope? Will those be planned out at the start? Well, I'm talking about those plans, aren't I? Getting rid of the core stuff. I've already talked in the past how I want to most likely get rid of those extra systems. I actually really feel like tying this into some pirate gameplay changes. So, something that's been talked about in terms of pirate gameplay is there's not a lot of territory to actually be a pirate. Derpy's getting rid of the chorus. Whoa. Yeah. It's going to be brutal. Just completely ripped out of the game. But, where was I? Lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so Quick's spaceport landing, or the customizable spaceports thing, I do want to get that done. But I also want to increase the amount of systems that exist, at least in the far north. A map rework? Flush? Not entirely. Because part of the reason that we have the deep space systems is because, at least I feel, there is not enough pirate territory to actually engage with. So if we nuke the deep space systems, but instead expand the far north, that gives us a bit more area to work with. So is it in addition or in tandem with expanding men? I don't think we would do this all at once. I think that... So for High Reveal, the only thing that's really important is the far north. And maybe the northern core. So I don't know if at the same time we would be expanding Men and Green Rock and Albatross and Buccaneer Bay in that area. But maybe it could be. Maybe it could be all involved together. And speaking on this as well, I also kind of getting into a bit of a map rework situation. Not entirely. But I do want to take... I'm thinking of taking Gray's core changes from the Zaplao pull request and breaking them out into a separate pull request and changing the core. To have a lot more uninhabited systems closer to the center of the galaxy. Because something that I kind of realized with one of Unordered's pull requests and one of Raven's pull requests is that the idea... So we hear in the Free Worlds Reconciliation branch that the Syndicate have been dealing with the Korath for a long time. But at the same time, we're saying that the Korath are a bit of an unknown. They're a bit of a secret that the Syndicate try to keep. That doesn't make very much sense when the Korath are jumping into inhabited human systems. Polaris, for example, can get Korath spawns. Sheraton can get Korath spawns. These are inhabited systems. Why would Korath be jumping into inhabited systems but at the same time, the Korth be a secret. Because maybe you can say the Syndicate try to keep things under wraps, but there's nothing stopping a random merchant from flying through at the same time that a Korth jumps in, and that merchant immediately turns tail and runs out of Syndicate space. There's no way that the Syndicate can keep that under wraps. It makes more sense, then, if the Korth only jump into uninhabited systems, especially uninhabited systems that have a large pirate presence. Or, rather, systems that merchants are unlikely to go to because pirates are nearby. Because that way, maybe we can say that the pirates know of the Korth, and I'm sure they do, especially with Durax, which Araki mentions. Or not Durax, the stuff up. Durax is another inhabited system in the Syndicate area, right? Off by Stormhold, there's some planets, there's some systems that the Korth can jump into. Maybe the pirates know about the Korth. They probably most likely do, because they fight them, we see that. But I imagine that most people wouldn't believe a pirate when a pirate's like, yeah, this massive alien warship jumped into the system and started beating the shit out of everyone. Like, it would just be a story among pirates type of thing. Azure says, yeah, I've talked to Gray about doing that. He said it was too much trouble, but if I recall correctly, I offered to do it when I have time. So here's the thing. I'm not taking that excuse from Gray anymore. After High Reveal, Gray does not get that excuse anymore. Oh, that'd be too difficult to do. Well, we gotta do it. Because it's better to do. So yes, I will most likely ask, and if Gray says no, I will just do it, or have somebody else do it, to pull the changes to the core out of the Zaplo pool quest. So we would be moving the core systems away from Sagittarius, A-star, and moving the Syndicate systems a bit closer to Earth. Maybe we need to sprinkle some uninhabited systems in there, just so that you can still jump to Sagittarius A-star, because that is a system that you need to be able to go to for Remnant missions. But I don't really imagine it would be that difficult, to be honest. It just says also we could move the hive slightly north to create room to expand those empty systems by the far north / northern Syndicate, and then make high space look more cohesive with Wanderer space, since they were supposed to be connected. Okay, now you're getting into map rework territory. I like what you're talking about. I do actually want to expand the far north, because I feel like it's not as big as it should be. Not just the pirate planets north of Farpoint, but also that section around the wormhole. Because it would make a lot more sense for the Hive to have been undiscovered for so long if it didn't only take you, 4 jumps to get from Beetlejuice to the wormhole? What is it, 1, 2... Yeah, I think it's 4, if I'm imaging the map correctly in my mind. And then you would run out of fuel when you get into high territory, but you could just ask for fuel. So all it takes is 4 jumps, right? I think 5 from a different direction, but in any case, I feel like it should be more, because a lot of ships have 4 or 5 jumps worth of fuel. Let's look at 7 or 8 jumps to get to Ultima Thule. How about that? This is getting a bit deep, though. I don't know. This is not specifically like high reveal stuff. Although maybe this comes first. I don't know. Should it? Sog says, I meant overall, not at the same time, referring to expanding men. Would be interested to see what Lake does. Yeah. Azure says, okay, I already read that one. Hector says, I always figured that people just assume that the random alien ship are just Quarg. I saw this weird alien ship appear in a flash of purple light. You mean the Quarg? No, it was very alien looking. Yeah, well, that would be Quarg. Sog says, what about Masam and the pirate systems that get hit by Korth the most now? Would those be deeper into the core, closer to humans without correspond, etc.? I think I kind of answered that, where I think it makes sense for pirate systems, or pirate-adjacent systems, to get correspond, just not Syndicate systems. Azure says, I'd also like to revise the system selection used in the core. Tau Ceti, for example, is very near Earth. It would be interesting to do so. It'll let me procrastinate on the AVG. Mac rework project, question mark? Yeah. Benny says, the density of stars in his pull request is a big jump compared to other parts of human space. It looks jarring. Azure says, yeah, it needs some tweaks, but I'd be willing to work on it. Yeah, I'm not saying that we would take exactly what Gray has. And if anything, that's the benefit of breaking it out. We can critique the system placement of human systems without that being necessarily tied to the Zaplow. And Doom says, yeah, it should be a gradient, not just a jump. Yeah. Well, depends. There are parts of the galaxy image that look like big jumps in star density. So maybe if we try to follow the galaxy image, it would make sense to have jumps in certain areas of density. But yeah, it should not be too big of a jump or too jarring. Sog says, so is the idea to make more tight star systems near the core or expand the overall density of stars, both, etc.? 2 to 4 is much different than 5 to 8 habitable systems. Not entirely sure what the distinction between what you're asking is. Is it need to make more tight star systems near the core or expand the overall density of stars? What do you mean expand the overall density? And how is that different from more tight star systems near the core? Azure says, okay, so this would be much more controversial, but I was wondering what people think of reworking human system names slightly as well. If you look at a view of the map that displays star types, you will see that habitable planets are only around M, K, G, and F type stars, which is very realistic, thanks MZ. But the names of most systems don't line up with their real-life star types. What if we tweak the names of the inhabited systems to match those, or match with habitable stars? No. We could keep the existing star names with uninhabited stars for uninhabited systems. I'd prefer not to. Just because, one, changing system names can actually potentially break save files. Or not break save files, but rather, you could theoretically make missions uncompletable or strand player escorts, depending on the system they were in at the time. Like, we renamed one of the coalition systems, and I remember at least one person posting on the Steam forums, hey, my escorts are in a system that does not exist, or something like that. Like, I can't find my escorts. It says they're in this system, but I can't find it. So you will get, even if the planet name stays the same, you can get escorts stuck if you rename the system. Doom says, yeah, that should definitely be 2 separate pull requests. Yeah. Azure says, I already read that one. This would be a big long-term thing, though. Honestly, Beetlejuice isn't even a big problem compared to the type A/B stars out there. Yeah. Sog says, sorry, uninhabitable between Korath and human. Yeah, we would have more uninhabited systems between Korath space and human space. If that's what you're asking. Sog says, I don't know how many we can shove in there without overlapping names everywhere, if that matters. Yeah, we are limited by overlapping names. We don't want that to be the case. Yeah, Hector says, doesn't seem worth it just to make it more realistic. Yeah. Like, so, Raven actually tried this. Not with every system, but what she did was she took a few specific stars, or systems, and looked at the star for that system, and swapped in a star that made sense, that matched the real-world star. You ended up with a blue supergiant in Farpoint, or next to Farpoint, which, given the habitable ranges that I was using at the time, pushed the habitable range of that system, or distance of that system, well outside of the system fence. So I was like, this does not work. We're just going to have to deal with this star not matching. Now, I have since revised the uninhabitable, or the habitable distances that we use for larger stars. But a blue supergiant is still not going to fit a habitable planet. Doom says, yeah, most of the stuff up north is blue supergiants, if I recall correctly, because it's mostly stuff in Orion. Azure says, we could also rework Farpoint into being a big Navy space station. Same with the more atrocious examples of habitable planets around supergiants. I don't know. I have actually thought of that. So there is one station in high space that is said to be at one of the Lagrange points of one of the planets in the system, such that it is always cast in shadow. And the planet that is cast in shadow of is close to the host star, which is a very bright star. So it wouldn't make much sense for the station to be out in the sun, because it's so close to the massive star, it would probably just overheat, or it would be so expensive to keep the station cooled that it just would not be feasible to keep it there. But if you put the station in the shadow of a planet, then that makes a bit more sense to have a station in a system with a super hot star. Just add radiators, says Azure. Yeah, just 90% of the station would be radiators. Hector says, Farpoint is a massive, heavily armed Dyson sphere now. Yeah. I will say I'm actually not against the idea of making Farpoint into a station. Let me pull up a map. Actually, this is getting even more into like map rework territory. So this is kind of getting along the lines of how should I describe it? So I've talked before about how I want the deep to be isolated. I have some similar ideas for the far north that we might be able to execute on if we turn Farpoint into a station. So something I've always thought a little weird. Okay, it's loaded. Find Soul. And switch the game. There we go. So here's our map. Nihal. Above that is all uninhabited. Mirfak, above all that, uninhabited. And a pirate planet. Zarak, above that is pirate and uninhabited. Betelgeuse, we got uninhabited over here. But then you just got Farpoint and Skillet just kind of chilling out here for some reason. Now, if this is a station, what if we removed or changed the links to safe here and made it so that Betelgeuse becomes the frontier beyond which, if you travel any further, your only hope is Farpoint. But otherwise, you're like in solidly pirate territory up here. So, like, remove this link and this link, and link safe down to Betelgeuse instead. Or maybe even just remove the link here? I don't know. I feel like we would have to add more systems then. There's just always been something about this area here where I feel like it would make a bit more sense if Betelgeuse just kind of was the end point. Like, beyond here, you're shit out of luck. I'm not really sure how to describe what I'm thinking of. Hector says, Farpoint being a station does seem more interesting than it just being a fortress planet. Yeah. It would also, I feel like, lean a bit more into the idea of... So here's actually something that would be interesting. Oh, we should definitely do this now, because it would tie a bit better into High Reveal. So with High Reveal, one of the plot points that is going to remain is the station that gets built somewhere in the far north. I don't know if it's going to stay right next to the wormhole. Maybe if the hologram that gets added on the wormhole looks better, it's worth keeping, because, I mean, the hologram is just so funny to me. And the station itself is too central a plot point for me to just toss. I actually like the idea of it. But something that's talked about is that the Republic fears, or has a fear of, the station being used as a front for the High, and as something of a weapons platform, or like a war station of some sort. That idea would make a lot more sense if the Republic had a war station of their own right here. And we do know that the whole reason that Farpoint exists as a Navy base is because of the High. Danforth tells us this in the Wanderer campaign. That the reason that the Republic has a Navy base here is because of fear of the High potentially being hostile. So you would get this like sense of rhyming or parallelism between the High and the Republic, and they both have these stations, but the Republic is kind of projecting onto the High what they think that their station might be for. It's like, oh, we have a war station. Do they have a war? Are they building a war station? Hector says, well, it's a combination of pirates and High, but yeah. The pirates is the pirates is the front story, though. Is it really because of the pirates? It's not like Beetlejuice is poorly defended. It's actually a pretty populous planet, which is going to mean that it's probably well defended. So I feel like it would make sense. Like, for example, Nihal here. What's this? Maelstrom? Maelstrom used to be a Navy base. And I've always thought that maybe Maelstrom is where the Navy started having their northernmost base to defend up here. And then just for whatever reason decided to move up to Farpoint. But maybe they started here while the Farpoint station was under construction. Or maybe they only moved up the Farpoint because of the High. Like, maybe this was a station, or I mean, a base before they knew of the High. Or whatever it might be. Although, thinking about it, why would you move the base? Because, what's this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 jumps. This is 4 jumps. Sure, you're 1 jump closer, but the High can still fork which direction they go. So why would you not have a base in both locations? Benny says another station landing image to find. That's not too bad, is it? Map rework stream says sure. Yeah, we're already off the original topic of the stream. Heavily armed battle station? Yeah. Finally. Darth Danforth? Question mark. Shake my head. Turn off Fog of War. No. You should use my star type view branch? No. I sure says clearly it should be merged as it's critical to the map rework. Not really. Azure says it also doesn't make much sense to make your base on a planet. Living at the bottom of a gravity well sucks. Propulsor engines make that not a problem, though. It's High Frontier time. High Frontier? Question mark. Sog says, I still want to work with Gray to change the graphics once we get to it. Yeah, we'll get there. Hector says, I mean, it does legitimately deal with large pirate raids pretty often, and it blocks the back route into Syndicate space. Yes, it does. Alright. I'm just thinking about how you might change things. I mean, somebody said something about density around the core. I'm gonna be honest, the rim is denser than the core right now of human space. Like that, there's definitely more systems down in the southern dirt belt and the rim than there are in the core given the same area. Or in syndicate space given the same area. So I think we could stand to make this a little denser and not have it look too off. Because you would have density here, and as like up here in the galaxy sprite, things don't look as dense in the background, so it makes sense that as you go off in this direction, the density would decrease somewhat. Sure says Derpy, make a map rework community project channel. And Benny says, yeah, but Gray's map is super dense. Yeah. Like I said, making it its own pull request lets us critique it a bit better. Actor says, wasn't some dude doing a map rework at some point? Are they still around? Question mark. Some dude. Are you talking about Azure? He has a name, you know. I don't know if you're talking about someone different. I don't know. This is Azure. Whatever the case. But let's get back into high reveal, though. This is off base. This is off base. So a quick rundown of how high reveal currently, the introduction currently goes, rather. So this is also going to be excluding some more recently merged pull requests. The war finishes. You see first a conversation talking about people talking about the war and the pug. Then a conversation talking about the guy talking about the high, which sends you to Sunracer or straight to the high. Sunracer sends you to the high. If you haven't been with the high before, you go on a bit of a tour. A guided tour, in a sense. Then the high walk up to you and be like, hey, we notice you. We know who you are. We know what you are. Please join us on High Home. So you go to High Home. You're introduced to Sayari. You're asked to pick up Zilin. And Alondo and Remington, and you also find Terry. Then they're like, okay, we're gonna get together and think of a solution to this. You go do other stuff. So you help fight off some pirates who just feel like kidnapping people, I guess. And they have a tricked out Geochorus, which is a pain to fight. Or to capture, rather. The ladybugs get introduced, right? Then my memory's slipping on what happens next. Is it immediately after the... Let me just pull up the file. There's a bit more here than I realized. So you fight the Geochorus, or capture it, or whatever it might be, or kill it, and if everyone inside. You return to High Home, and you're next asked to investigate... Oh yeah, that's really it. You return to High Home after the Geochorus, and then Sayari is like, hey, there's been more kidnappings. Can you investigate these? That's the introduction. Hector says Azure is a color, not a name. So it is. Azure says, I found an old image of my most recent map rework, or the most recent version. Probably deleted. Yeah, I don't know why some of these... What in the world is this? This would not work. Like, some of the changes I get. But some of these I'm like, why did you do that? Let me put it up on screen. Oops, it's on the wrong browser. Tab. Jeez. It opened in the music tab instead. There we go. So here's the reworked map. Looks like it's really just human space here. So you got more uninhabited systems up here. The distance from this side is still the same to get to the wormhole. Far north has become pushed in a bit more, pushed away from Wanderer space. The whole rim has been screwed up. Why is there a pirate planet sticking off of that system? Way. Because pirates, says Lewis. Yeah. So this is the south and this is the rim? You didn't move the... You didn't move the background labels. The galaxy labels. The rim is now on top of the dirt belt. Shaking my head. Looks like the dirt belt itself hasn't changed much. This area's changed a bit. Did you push the terminus systems down? I think so. Those look pushed. Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this one bit. Too many uninhabited systems around here. In the core, I feel like. They're all kind of just, oh my gosh, this reminds me of Shields Up. So if you play it up, if you have an older version of Shields Up, there used to be systems that connected these regions of the core. Because like right now you have to go around, like out and around, but there was added systems that connected things, so there's a shortcut. This looks like that to me. Lewis says, "Ah, yes, Shields Up, the greatest mod for Endless Sky." Whatever. Like I said, though, let's get back to the actual high reveal stuff. How about that? How about that? So that's the current introduction to high reveal. See 2 news reports. Within a month and a half, you're already kicked into the story. Led on or put on a tour that feels kind of forced. Help fight off some pirates, or actually pick up the diplomats, help fight off some pirates. Trusted by the High for very little reason. Then Sarah asks you to investigate the kidnappings. Overall, I'm not going to even ask about. Don't talk about that. Overall, I think it was 25 missions. Let me just hold on. How about I just Control F for mission in the file? not that file. This one. $28. But one of those is just a mission that kicks off an event. So more like 27. $26. Another event kickoff, so 25. Basically 25, let's call it. 25 missions. Somewhere between 25 and 30. My current skeleton has 16. And one of those is an event kickoff. So 15. So nearly cut in half. And let's actually see what I have. Let me swap over to Notepad here. So this is the file I'm working on with my changes so far. And when I call it a skeleton, it is very much a skeleton. I have like nothing done conversation-wise. I've had this skeleton for like a week now. And I kind of tweak it here and there. And I do actually still want to tweak this a bit. But generally speaking, this is how I want to move things forward. Sure says, could we merge the Hyrule files into one? Question mark. Probably not. It's probably not going to be that small. I think it would still make sense to break things up a bit. But it might not be the 7 files that it is now, or whatever it is. Just currently it has like 10 files. 10 different files. But yeah, some of them are big files. Maybe like 2 to 3, he says. I don't know if we're going to go that low. Man, maybe. We'll see. We'll see. So, something I'll note is that... Actually, I'm going to open up another file first. Okay, this one. This is technically where we start now. Now, I mentioned how there were 2 news reports. That has been changed. There's now 3 war reaction missions that you can get. These were worked on by Unordered. I've made some tweaks to this file, but for the most part, the missions are the same. So instead of getting that first news report where it talks about that guy from Bounty, you're now getting a series of reactions from different random civilians. A change I've made is I noticed that Gray was using events a lot, like empty events a lot. Empty events a lot. Bleh. So an empty event is an event where, I have one in here. So these are empty events. They exist only for the purpose of flipping a condition at some point. Now, in this case, it makes sense because these events are delayed, because we want to delay the condition. But Gray was using a lot of events with no delays. But the events were also empty. So I was like, what's exactly going on here? So I changed a bunch of events, and I just made them into conditions instead. Another change I've made is that we're adding a new main plot completed condition. Now, when the main plot is completed, we save how many days it's been since the start of your pilot into a condition. So we will permanently know how many days it took you from the start of the game until you completed the main campaign. And we can then use this as a trigger instead of needing multiple different events that are all timed. Sure says this is an invasion of my privacy. Okay. Yeah, we're going to begin recording analytics on all of our players. We will know exactly how many ships you have at all times, exactly where you are and where you are going. We'll have full control over your bank account, as is our capability using central bank digital currencies. In any case, we can use this event. I mean, use this this condition, and compare with this day since start. So if day since start minus main plot completed date is greater than 30, it's been more than 30 days since the main plot was completed. Yes, crypto, question mark? Yeah. And I've used this in a couple of places, just so that we don't need to, like I said, keep having events where it's like, okay, now on this date this happens, on this date that happens. What this also allows us to do is, since this will be a condition that exists in all save files going forward after 0.10.1, one thing I've seen that we do sometimes is we have a new mission. We want it to happen sometime after the main plot is completed. Well, what would we do? We would make a new event for that. Well, that new event doesn't exist until that version. So let's say you have a mission you only want to have start 120 days after the main campaign is completed. When somebody updates that version, they would have to wait 120 days, even though it's already been 120 days since they completed the main campaign. This would let us immediately say, it's been over 120 days. We can give it to you day one of updating your game version, instead of having to wait for an event to cycle. So it's actually pretty nifty. Now, one question I do have. Should we use days since start, which is the start of the pilot start date, or should we do days since epoch, which is 111? The difference there is we would not just know the number of days. I mean, actually, technically, you could just do days since start plus date since plus main plot completed equals. Wait, no, main plot completed plus days since epoch. No, what the fuck would you do? No, it would be start date. I don't even know. Whatever. I'm just trying to think of like what would give us the most malleability, using days since epoch or days since start, and I'm like running through all of the situations you could use it in my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, that wouldn't even work though. I think it's probably not even really a difference at the end of the day. You know what? Forget the question. It's gonna stay this way. So if you wanted to figure out how many days it's been since you completed the main plot, use this comparison right here. Yeah, so these three war reactions. You talk to two asteroid miners. This one has that old conversation in its background, where you had the one guy on Bounty talking about aliens and whatnot. You talk to these Navy and Free Worlds captains, and then you talk to some orphan on a syndicate planet. But these are now your post-war reactions, instead of having just one mission that takes place after the main campaign that ties into High Reveal. These can tie into High Reveal, or these could be completely unrelated to High Reveal. The concept of this, though, is just to have some way to... These are basically culture conversations for after the main campaign is complete. That's how I describe it. So, there's that. And what Unordered did originally was require that at least one of these be seen until doing the next part. I removed that. Now, instead of requiring one of these, which can start 30 days after, we are now going to wait 230 days until High Reveal kicks off. The reason this date was chosen is because it's also the date or the number of days between the start of the game and the bombing. So we'll have a similar gap between a very new player figuring out their bearings in the world before we start making everything go to shit, and a player who's just completed the main campaign getting their bearings in the world again before we kick off the next big thing. This trigger kicks off two conditions instead of events this time. And I'm thinking of maybe removing this one because it's kind of redundant with just checking if the leaks have happened. And that is what triggers one of these news events. Now, I do need to touch up these conversations because they're still using the old conversations. But either you land in the free worlds and get this news. You land in Republic or Syndicate and get this news. Or a new one, which I am actually waiting on Gray to write. You're in high space when it happens. And you get a different set of news instead. And I'm also thinking of changing this one. I'm thinking of doing... how about this? So the news isn't going to reach high space the exact same time. So I was thinking of doing this. And saying the news reaches high space, let's say a month or later, whatever it is. And then you would get rid of this. This would become 30. This would become 90. And this would become this. Think. Yeah. Because I'm still tweaking exactly how these... Because where you get the conversation will also change, like, well, what if you go to high space early? What if you go to high space later? So what's happening here is you hear about the news... 30 days later, whoever you knew from the main campaign is going to show up in high space. 30 days after that, they'll have gotten their bearings in high space and started to figure out what the heck to actually do. And then, 120 days after that, or after you hear the news, is when your friend actually contacts you. So if you don't go to high space after the main campaign, it's 230 days to get the news, plus another 120 days before anybody actually reaches out to you about pulling you into the story. Sox says, "Wah, incoming wah, why do I have to wait for anything with delays?" Cry about it. Honestly, I don't understand the complaints about delays too much. If you really just want to, if you don't want the downtime and you just want to speed through things, just jump back and forth, like, as many times as you can. Just to kill time. Park all your ships. Give your flagship a shit ton of fuel and ram scoops. Go to the map. Hold shift. Jump back and forth between two systems 100 times. Walk away and do something else. Yeah, Doom says, in this example specifically, you've just got the jump drive. It's not like there's a lack of content to be doing during the delay. Yeah. There's plenty of stuff to do. If you really want to jump straight into high reveal, then like I said, just waste time. But so this actually kind of gets toward a wider discussion of who are we making the game for, kind of. So I like to think about things from the perspective of a brand new player. If you're brand new and you've just completed the Free Worlds campaign, or any of the main campaign branches once they're all done, let's say you don't know the high exists, you're not going to know there's a story for the high. You're not going to know that high reveal exists. So the delay doesn't even hurt you. It only helps you, if anything. Just to, like I said, give you room to get your bearings after the main campaign is completed. Now, yes, for people who have already finished all of the story before, and they just want to jump into the brand new thing immediately, maybe it's a bit of an annoyance for them, but so. It sure says, are we letting high reveal happen before you discover the high? Yes. The high reveal can be your introduction to the high, potentially. Given how I have it currently worked out. So I'll actually continue. So you get these news about the high. If you're in high space when it happens, you get a different perspective of the news. And actually what I could do is this, and branch. Ah, shit. Branch, herd, has heard the news. If you haven't, then we set has heard the news. Label, heard, and then, oops, you have a different thing. Different discussion if you hadn't heard the news before. Anyway. I'd probably have to rework what Gray has, because he's not expecting this. So here we go. Here's the... I'm just going to scroll through this quickly. This is what I mean by skeleton. I have sources, offer conditions, destination. So I have your objectives. And I know what conditions I'm setting. And where things are going and everything. I just don't have conversations at all. So, but I'll say what I'm going to plan to do for each of these. So... where should I start, actually? I'll start down here. So let's say you haven't been to high space. Actually, let me see. Ozurus is not sure I'd like that, to be honest. Doom says, personally, I think you haven't... If you haven't discovered the high yet, you should get some mention of aliens up north. But I don't think it should outright point you to high space if you haven't found it yet. And Hector says, I quite like how high are something you need to find by exploring. You don't get directed to them. It's this entirely new area, culture, and missions that are only obtainable if you explore outside of the bounds of the game. I don't think they need anything directing players to them. I mean, like I said, it takes a year to even get to this point after the main campaign. If you haven't found... If you have a jump drive and you still haven't found the high a year later, I don't know, man. Ojura says, I think it takes away from the whole the secret is being revealed thing if a new player doesn't even know the secret exists. I'm trying to think how I would change it if I were to do it like that. Basically, I'd just be removing these 1, 2, 3, 4 missions. I would just chunk 4 missions out of this to do that. And that would be the only change I would need to do. If we were to make it so that you have to travel to high space yourself in order to actually start things. I'll describe how I have it now, though. So... 350 days after the main campaign is completed, you will be contacted by Alondo. He will ask you to meet him on Prime in the Beetlejuice system. Then, depending on whether you knew of the high already, or if you didn't know of them, you branch. If you already knew of the high, you have a quick conversation with Alondo, and you're like, oh yeah, I already even know. And he's like, alright, can we head to High Home? If you didn't know, then he points you to All Home, and then from All Home we go to High Home. Now, something of note, I have here that this effectively replaces High First Contact. So you saw I jumped over to this file earlier. If you have gotten to this point in High Reveal and hadn't met the High yet, this replaces First Contact entirely. First Contact for the High won't even offer. You get a different introduction to them instead. Now, let's say you heard the news when you were in human space, but then you travel to high space later. You find it. Well, that's where this mission comes from. This is you visiting high space before Alondo has the chance to reach out to you. He actually sees you on whatever high planet you're on, and he's like, hey, I was probably going to contact you later, but since you're already here, let me rope you into things. And you go to high home. And this one is, let's say you were already in high space before Alondo even showed up. This is you seeing him show up in high space. But all three of these paths, well, four even, lead to high home. So that's this mission. You meet your cast of characters. Alondo, Zilin, Sam, Terry, Sayari. Get a quick rundown of the situation, and then you're pointed to the spaceport. Now you'll notice this is setting these conditions that you have met Alondo. Well, we're setting these conditions because you already know Alondo. There's this mission, which I was planning on just leaving empty because we don't need an introduction to Alondo. We already know him. What this does is it kicks us into a mission with Zilin. We do some mission, or maybe 2 missions with him, just to know who he is, get a sense of his character, and get introduced to him. This will offer if we have the Met Alondo mission done, which we've set up here. We've set that condition, even though the mission doesn't actually happen, because we're playing with conditions here. And this mission doesn't offer, because we set it already offered. After we meet Zilin, that triggers the conditions to meet Sam. We then do a mission or 2 with him. That says his stuff done. Now, let's say you didn't do the Free Worlds campaign. Let's say that you did the Syndicate campaign, and you already know who Sam is. Well, then we would set this mission to be offered and done. And this causes Alondo's mission to offer. So what I'm doing here is you're cycling through all 3 of these characters, but we're removing one of these missions depending on who you already know. So I'm already setting things up for when the future campaigns are finished. You would then have missions that are alternatives of this. You would have Meet the Team Republic or Navy and Meet the Team Syndicate, and those would fulfill the requirements for the mission for that character that you already knew, and you would get a slightly different introduction to everybody, but the conversation will probably be mostly the same. So this might be broken out into its own conversation block that all of these would refer to. But then you meet your main 3 characters from the campaigns that you might have already met. That is what triggers Terry's introduction. You do a mission or 2 with her, and then you meet Sayari, and you get her introduction. A mission or 2 with her. And that was my plan for the introduction. That would be where things end off. Then from here is where things could start to go a little crazy. Wizrad says, an in-game year can be literally half an hour of space trucking for money now. Those are quick jumps. But I mean, if that's what you spend your year doing, then that's what you spend your year doing. So, but it's still an in-game year. Hector says, what Doom said is fine too, as in just have a message saying something is happening up north if we really need to give the player a lead to follow. Well, the lead to follow is the news report. This would be your lead to follow. This should not be kicking you into action to go to Sunracer. Like I said, this is just needs tweaked. Or to go to the high this would just be, hey, this guy is talking about aliens. It's like, oh, yo, there's these aliens up north. Maybe you go up there, maybe you don't. Now, that does beg a question, though. You're saying we shouldn't start high reveal unless you've already met the high. If you have met the high before, should your friend contact you? Or should we still wait for you to show up? Because I do actually have ways where you can change these. Trying to think how I would. So I'm thinking that if we make it so that you don't get called into high reveal, instead of having just one news report, we have multiple. So we get a news report about this guy talking about the high, and then maybe we get something after this where something else happens, where it's like the Navy warns of increased pirate activity in the far north. Merchant captains are advised to steer clear of those systems. It's like it just so happens to be the systems that are close to the wormhole. So it looks like there's a bit of a cover-up going on. Well, it depends on how you... Depends on what perspective you have. Is it a cover-up or is it really happening? Maybe it is really happening. Maybe there are pirates having increased activity in the far north. But maybe some people are like, oh, it sounds like a cover-up. Maybe there's a third news report after that. I don't know. Something to keep in mind is that, now maybe this just gets tossed entirely, but one of Gray's concerns was that he wants high reveal to have some sort of time limit on it as to when it triggers after the main campaign to create a sense of urgency. Now, I've somewhat argued that I don't really think we need that sense of urgency, because if the idea is that there's a threat of another alien invasion of some sort, well, it's not like everybody's just going to forget about the Pug just because it was 3 years ago, whatever it might be. The Pug will still be present in people's minds. So I don't think that there's an urgency that the urgency is warranted. But if there is no urgency, then the story does still need to kind of account for what if the player does take a long time. Do we have some cutoff where it's like, if you get to there within the first year, we have some intro missions, but if you are later than a year, then it's... there's a wasp outside my window. And if it's later than a year, then you get a separate conversations, maybe, not strictly separate missions. Okay, you flew off. Azura asks, does Taneep still exist? Yes. I think Taneep is going to stay. Weeaboo squirrels, says Lewis. Sucks, says the Gegna will invade. That's like the last thing they do, yeah. Azura says tragic. Okay, so let me tweak this then. Let's do it live. So we'd get rid of contact by friend. We'd get rid of these missions, these 4. Alondo arrives, and friend arrives, Alondo. You arrive, Alondo. This would disappear. Not Metalando. You have heard the news. Your friend has arrived but has not settled in. Your friend has settled in. Maybe extend these a bit. This would disappear. This would disappear. I'll deal with this later. Actually. Nah, yeah, I think this would stay. This would go. Then we'd have something like this. Actually, no. It's everyone, right? And this would be... How about this? Has event. Friend settled in. And this would be like some sort of news report about the Navy warning merchant captains of increased pirate activity in the far north. And I guess this is what I missed. Hector says, map rework discussion mainly, also discussion on whether high reveal should start prior to you discovering the high. Yes, also discussing what I have planned so far for a reworked high reveal intro. We're currently going over, as Hector said, whether or not you should be pulled into a high reveal at any point before discovering the high. put it there. Now, what would a third news report be? Let's say the Navy warns of high pirate activity. Would we have a third news report? Media retraction. And how this would be on offer event. Let's go up here. I've got some stuff here. Harville News. Let's do this. So this would kind of get into the idea of let's call it 90 days. And stick this down here. So what I'm doing here is kind of what I was talking about with, well, what do we do if you come in later? If we do want to have some sense of timing. And let's say, now something that's kind of been mentioned before is that the game will wait for you. If you don't engage with a storyline, that storyline will not progress in any way. That will still be the case with High Reveal, but what if there was some progression if you didn't hop in very early? So, when you currently in High Reveal, part of the cover-up is to say, like, oh, it was that whole news report where the guy was like, there's aliens up here and I have footage of it. That was just a viral marketing stunt. But if we want to impress some sort of urgency, then if the player it doesn't show up soon enough, then maybe that whole idea of telling everyone it was a viral marketing stunt happens without you. I'm not too certain on how this would change things about. It certainly makes this cutting point better, because then we can figure out, okay, after you've met the team, what have you missed? Or what happened without your input? And then you get a... Or maybe it happens here. That they tell you, like, hey, this is what we've already done. But this isn't going to work forever. News reports that says that the guy who showed the video of the high ships, what it would be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months prior. Was just a viral marketing stunt for an upcoming movie. Okay, then we ask, well, what if... So there's a movie that's under production, or in production now. What if we say you show up another year later and the movie still isn't out? Well, clearly what we do then is when you show up, they'll be like, oh, this movie's been in marketing hell forever. I mean, development hell. So just reacting to how long it's taking the player to get to things, in a sense. So what are we at now? Got rid of 4. I added back 2. Alright, so we're at 14. General thoughts on this, though? So a recap. 230 days after the main campaign, you see one of 3 news reports, depending on where you're located, talking about this guy talking about the High, showing off a video of them, or at least of a battle. A couple months later, the Navy warns people about going to the far north, which acts as a bit of a cover for avoiding people suddenly flocking to the north to try and find the High. Then, a couple months after that, they say, oh, hey, that news report you heard all the way back then? Yeah, that was just a our marketing stunt. During this time, you can show up in high space. If you show up early enough, then you catch Alondo as he's showing up. But if you show up later, Alondo's like, hey, I've been here. Then you get introduced to our cast of characters. Somewhere along the way, if it took you long enough, then we describe these news report events that happened before. We describe the whole, oh, it's a piracy thing, and the whole, oh, it's a movie thing to the player. Meanwhile, if you show up before you even knew of the High, we're still going to block the first contact with the High, the original. And we're going to provide some sort of alternative within this campaign. Not trying to tack onto the end of the existing first contact as is currently being done, but to instead provide an alternative. And only after this point, where you know all your characters, and you get a bit of interaction with the High, without them somehow coming to you and knowing that you're important, you show yourself as important by working with the team. Only then do we start to actually get into the crisis of things. Thoughts? Any objections? Any improvements that could be made? Any feedback of any kind? And then what I would do here, we would go to, I got rid of this thing, right? Yeah, we can get rid of this one, this thing, Secret Lakes, and media retraction. Go to the news file. I'm going to replace these. Checks out. It's got to change too. And this mission's probably going to disappear or be renamed, so I got to come back here eventually. No thoughts? Head empty? Is that all? No head, says Anarchist. So no head? That's a shame. That's kind of all I had to talk about, so. Is there anything else specific anybody wants me to discuss at the moment? Because, as has been evident, it's not very difficult to get me on a tangent. We spent the first half of the stream talking about stuff I wasn't even planning on talking on. I did not see that Sog made his own announcement for a stream. He says, "No, Derpy, this does not mean to end the stream early, as he is going to stream after me." Sog, are you ready to stream? Wizrad says, what are you having for dinner tonight? I don't know. I saw my mom making some sort of soup. Hector says, Derpy 24-hour stream. I'm not going to start a 24-hour stream on a Sunday. I have work tomorrow. Anarchist says, the final encounter bit with Terry. Yeah, that. Okay, so speaking on Terry, here's the thing that this kind of gets to what Anarchist was talking... I mean, not Anarchist. Azure was talking about earlier with, well, what if we have to change the introduction to fit what comes later? I'm not too certain yet what's going to happen with Terry. Hector says, stream you working? No, I will not. Because if I do, I'll dox myself. I will dox my place of work. It's gonna be one big black screen, and I'm just gonna be talking about random things. I can talk about work though, right now if you want me. Lewis says play Roblox. Roblox. No. But yeah, back to what I was saying with Terry. I don't know how Terry's story arc is gonna go. Talking about removing the deep space stuff, I think the whole enclave thing is a bit out there. The whole centralized nature of the kidnapping stuff is kind of up in the air. Terry's purpose as a character is mainly to be tied into that last part. Does Terry even remain as a character? But sure says, can you remove the high being incompetent? It basically exists only as an unfettered apologia. What parts of the storyline are you referring to? where the high are incompetent. Hector says, oh, did we decide if Wander is going to be blocked behind high reveal? Not until high reveal is finished. So when this introduction is finished, with 0.10.1, Wander campaign will be as it was before. We're going to revert any changes to the Wander campaign that account for high reveal. Once high reveal is done, what I would like is 2 separate Wanderer introductions. A Wanderer introduction where you do not have a translation device because you have not had enough interaction with the High to really get one. And a separate one where you finished High Reveal, and when you are speaking with the Wanderers, and they try High on you, you understand, like, oh, hey, I recognize that. Something I noted with Gray is that it seems a little weird to me that all it takes to recognize that the Wanderers are speaking High is to have finished the High first contact. So you're telling me with a single instance of speaking, or of being on a High planet, in which you may not have even possibly heard the High speaking High, because All Home is a bit of a mixed world, you recognize these Wanderers are speaking High? So I thought it made a bit more sense if you first had to go through a bit of an expensive storyline with the High in order for you to recognize that the Wanderers are trying to speak High. Azure says the whole thing about the High government being corrupt and inefficient. Is it corrupt and inefficient, though? I don't think it is. Doom says there are other aspects of lore that also point to the High being incompetent outside of High Reveal. Yeah, that point being recognizing languages is a good point. Yeah. Where's the... Well, actually, I see what you mean. I see what you mean with the... I wouldn't call it corruption or inefficiency. I would call it incompetence, though, of the government. The missions about Tanib elections having a ton of lines about elders taking bribes and such. When does that happen? I mean, I know about the election, but I don't recall anything about bribes. I don't see a single instance of the word bribe in any of the High Reveal files. Well, actually, I see one, and it's when you land on an unfettered world. You bribe your way onto the unfettered world. Azure says both Gray and Unordered have described the elders as being corrupt. Well, it doesn't really come off that way. Many such cases of people saying, oh, I see the game this way, but then their actions do not speak those words. Hector says, it seems reasonable to have 2 separate intros. I just don't want to see it completely blocked. Well, it's already completely blocked on... Well, it's already completely blocked... Well, getting further into the campaign, it's already completely blocked on the main campaign being finished first. But I see what you mean. It's not going to be... My desire is that you'll be able to get through as much of the Wander campaign as you can now without having done the main campaign, without also having done High Reveal. It's just going to be a very different experience because you can't actually talk to the Wanderers. Doom says, no reason that the High Elders can't be corrupt. It helped with the humanity as a total disaster, every alien species is magically perfect complaint people keep making. Here's the thing, though. I think it's a bit... How should I put this? It's a bit boring if the High are corrupt in the same way as humans are. Because then that's basically saying, like, oh, everybody's like humans. Instead of saying, like, oh, everybody's better than humans. I think it makes more sense for the issues with the High Government to be completely different issues from what we see in human governments. Maybe not completely different, but the main issues being different. So I haven't actually gathered corruption from the higher reveal. Okay, it looks like it sure has a quote. The elders have been making deals with your pirates for a long time in return for secrecy or ceasing mischief. We gave them credit, supplies for the colonies, or weapons. I'm not privy to the details, but I've known for quite a while. Is that corruption, though? Is appeasement corruption? I don't think it is. Corruption to me feels very internal. That is an external agreement being made that you're talking about there. The elders are not making this deal in order to, say, keep their position in the High Government. They're making that deal to keep the High as a species hidden. Doom says, I agree the High shouldn't be like the Republic, but I don't think there's much risk of that being the case. The High Government come across as cowardly and crucially as being conflict averse is a fault. Yeah, that's what I'm... Squirrel Chamberlain? Yeah. So I think that the issues with the High Government aren't in corruption. It's with their complacency and their conflict avoidant nature, as Doom has put it. It's also with the very labyrinthine nature of the elections and with the government as a whole. There's a lot of red tape that needs to be jumped through, not for any reason of corruption, but just for... You're looking at a government that has been around for tens of thousands of years. There is a sort of efficiency to it, but there is also a lot of dead weight that comes with being around for that long. A Byzantine bureaucracy, says Hector, yes. Hector says, speaking of the High Translation device, do you have any idea when we might be looking at some of the open scanner pull requests? I don't know how those relate, but... probably within the next couple weeks, given that we're closing in on the end here. Well, it would have to be within the next couple weeks. Doom says, I suppose the best explanation for why it's not corruption is that the elders aren't making the deals with the pirates in an attempt to make personal gains at the expense of high society as a whole. They're doing it for their own, arguably misguided ideals and understanding. Yeah. Just as they don't, I just want to ask. And Anarcha says, what about the portrayal of the unfettered? I haven't been able to read through High Reveal recently. What about their portrayal? Sox says, what all do you plan on wrapping into the patch at this point? In terms of what remains? This introduction. Is there anything milestones? I do want to wrap up some of the scanner stuff, if not all of it. Let me just pull up the milestone and see what else is there. There's 3 things on the milestone. This one's not happening. I'm just going to pop it off the milestone. The fighter improvements from Sam. And my capture changes are not going to make it, so I'll pop that issue off. What? Hold on. I just saw that. Did Bladewood change his... his username on GitHub? Yo? This was Bladewood's issue. spotted. I saw that. Anyway. Hector says, high reveal seems important. I'd like to see the scanner stuff looked at as well for this patch. Yeah. So I guess for me, high reveal, intro, and scanner changes. Those are the only two things I really have on my plate. Scanner changes being milestoned. Quick asks, are we going to get below 100 for this release? That doesn't look like it. I don't want to get through 22 pool quests in that time, in the next 2 weeks. Maybe if people stopped opening stuff? I don't know. That's always the case. What's the last month looking like? Whoop. Oh no, anime invading Endless Sky. Says Hector. I got news for you, brother. It's always been the case. Alright. Anything else? It's nice out. I want to get out of here. And Nuka says, speaking whether the unfettered are treated as a flawed solution that brings its own issues, or they are treated as being strictly superior system to the regular high. I mean, are they treated as a superior system in Hyreville at the moment? I don't really feel like they are. I have a description for it, but I don't want to use this description, so I will not. But I would definitely say that the unfettered are an alternative, as you say, a flawed solution that has its own issues. They see problems with the current high way of things, and they reject the society as a whole because of those flaws. Azure says it's more like that their flaws are completely glossed over, referring to the unfettered. I mean, if that's the case, then that should not be the case with the final product. Yeah, and Hector says they are slowly being made less flawed over time. That is something I've noted. Nomadic tried that. I saw that happening with Nomadic, and I was like, you're not doing that. And guess who's come back to do the same? They're gamers then? Yeah. It's Gamergate all over again. Azure says everyone just magically forgets they've been killing merchants. Yeah. Just no. Hector says derpy no. I could have gone deeper, but I refrained from doing so. Gamer Unfettered? What the fuck? I love the Unfettered now. Doom says they were kind of comically overflawed originally, to be fair. We should work out what level of flawedness we want and aim towards that rather than just analyzing which direction we're going in at the moment. True. Although, this is something I've kind of argued before. Is it the case that some factions in the game are comically flawed or what have you? Or is it the case that we just haven't put a spotlight on them yet? So, for example, I've seen some people describe the Syndicate as comically evil. But I don't really think that's the case. I think that we just haven't had a lot of missions really dig into the thought process of the Syndicate. And I actually did make some slight tweaks to this in my first rework of the Free Worlds campaign. Let me pull up the mission in question. Data, human, reconciliation. Let me pop it up raw. Why is this so zoomed in? Zoom in a bit more. What would I look up? I always forget how to spell his name. Star. Bastards. Whatever. Here it is. So this is Free World Syndicate Extremist 1A. You have come to Foundry to speak with Alistair. Alistair. That's what it is. Yada yada yada. Corbin sighs and opens his desk and pulls out a sheet of paper. This is my resignation letter, he says. I've been working on it since my first meeting with Captain Last. I've failed in my leadership of this company, but you have no idea how deep that failure goes. What do you mean? Years ago, he says, some leaders of our financial division were approached by consultants. Some very intelligent and knowledgeable individuals. These consultants had built a powerful quantum computer running a model of the galactic economy. They called it the Oracle. As you may know, business is all about taking risks for uncertain payoffs. But the Oracle gave us a way to predict the future for everything from supply chain management to stock trading to the commodities market. These consultants, says Freya, were they human? Alistair looks very uncomfortable. Yes and no, he says. Danforth swears. Alphas. You were dealing with the Alphas. What did you give them in return? The Korth raids had just begun, said Alistair. So we suddenly had access to alien technology. They were interested in all of it, particularly the jump drives, so they could spread beyond human space. Was the information from the Oracle accurate, or why would you ever agree to work with the Alphas? They have power and knowledge. To some of us, that was enough, he says. Was that knowledge accurate? Asks Freya. Very accurate, he says. Our business flourished like never before. But then a month came when, instead, the Oracle's predictions were bleak. A massive recession was coming, an end to the golden days of the Republic. We tried altering the model in every way we could, changing our production, our wages. We even asked the Oracle if dissolving the Syndicate would avert the recession, but its predictions remained the same. Then we learned from our contacts in Parliament about the Southern Defense Pact, and the fear that they were about to declare independence. So we asked the Oracle what would happen if war broke out. You started war to save the economy? Says Danforth. He sounds disgusted. Do you know how many lives have been lost because of your sick greed? And this is a line that I added. Alistair snaps Danforth. Do you think we made this decision lightly? Do you know how many lives would have been lost had a recession actually occurred? The last time the economy fell as hard as the Oracle predicted, humanity entered a dark age where millions died of starvation and billions more suffered from the resulting chaos. But the Alphas were only too glad to help, especially with the nuclear research. Which, incidentally, is why I'm telling you all of this, because if your fleet tries to take out the Alphas, we'll strike back with nukes. So, the purpose of this line was not just to add some nuance to the Syndicate's decision-making. It wasn't literally just, let's do whatever maximizes profit. It was also an aspect of, this was so bad it wasn't even a question of profit anymore. This would have been a disaster worse than the war. So, Azure says the Alphas like nukes. Holy shit, I love the Alphas. 100% protagonists. Azure says they were just trolling. It was a joke, bro. So true. Azure says, I mean, they aren't even environmentally unfriendly, since Terrell's new lore has the rest of the High screwing them over by forcing them to live on already polluted planets. Is that the case? that should not be the case, if that's the case. Honestly. Hector says, I don't think they were overflawed. They had their own designs and their own viewpoints and their own situation that put them into a position of being heavily flawed and making the best of the situation they have. Doom says, the Syndicate come across as considerably less comically evil than a lot of real-world stuff, honestly. True. Hector says, the recent move with the Unfettered High seems to be focusing on their flaws and attempting to justify them, without considering those flaws or how those flaws are an important part of their faction in the first place. Anarchist says, years ago I was Chinese. Hector says, you see, they were flawed, but here's how their flaws actually make them better, which means they aren't flaws. Yeah. That's not what we should be doing. Sog says, Azure under government surveillance. Azure says, I am the government. And Sog says, Derpy is the Senate. Doom says, the mission is good one. But this mission is a good one, definitely, and I like how it makes this Syndicate less commonly evil without completely resolving them either. It's a good balance, yeah. Absolving, not resolving. Yes. And something else I pointed out, too, before I even added that line, Alistair also notes how we even asked the Oracle if dissolving the Syndicate would avert the recession. So he's saying, like, we would have given up everything just to avoid this. And even that wasn't enough. So there's certainly things you can argue against the Syndicate for, but were they really wrong for starting the war? Question mark. Basically what I'm saying is, nah. What I'm saying is an argument can be made. And I think that's what we should be aiming for, is that an argument can be made. Not that somebody or some faction is 100% perfect and there's no argument against them, but that you can argue one way or another whether the actions they take are fully justified or moral or what have you. Lewis says, I love the military-industrial complex. Palpatine be like, long live the banks. Jim says, it leaves open the question of does he genuinely believe all of this, or is he just trying to cover his back? And surely the Syndicate has more than enough power to lighten the blow of the recession. But those are rooms for argument, yeah. If you take what he's saying at face value, then the answer to the second question is actually no. Because they said they tried everything, basically. So, like, even we alone could not change this. But yes, there is a question of, is he just bullshitting us? And frankly, that's up for the player to decide. Lewis says, Alphas could have fucked around with the Oracle too, Lamau. Yeah, that is something that has been discussed in the past as a possibility. Maybe it's the case that the Alphas messed with the Oracle. I don't want us to outright disprove that, but I don't want us to outright prove it either. I think that's one of those things where it's a nice bit of story to just leave hanging, and just leave up to the player to decide. I feel like it would be worse off if we were to actually describe or to answer that question. I like to think that they didn't, but it certainly would be in the Alpha's MO to mess with the Oracle. Azure says, if the Syndicate is bad, how come their government color is blue? Checkmate, commies. I don't think that's the... I don't think that's the slam dunk you'd think it is. I will not elaborate. Azure says the Oracle shouldn't even be possible due to economic calculation problem, to be honest. It isn't just computing issue, it's an information gathering issue. This has been brought up before, I don't care. Doom says, I don't mean to stop the recession, I mean the Syndicate have significant control over both prices and wages, and a sizable portion of the galaxy, and maybe they could in effect subsidize the government or the economy and try to mitigate the consequences. That's going into political discussion, so I'll stop. They can't, though. They ask the Oracle everything. They can't. That's the point. You can't argue, well, maybe they could have done this or that. They couldn't have done this or that. The Oracle said so. That's the whole point of the conundrum, is they had no other choice from their perspective but to start a war. I feel like it lessens the impact of what happened if you try to argue, well, there could have been some other out. The idea is there was no other out. This decision was not taken lightly. Hector says, some things like Pug are better left unexplained. Yes. Lewis says, the Alphas are superhumans. What's stopping them from being quite literally the greatest information broker in the galaxy? Yeah. Hector says, well, Doom is saying they could have helped, but the only way to stop the recession was war. Perhaps. But how much help? Is stopping the recession not itself helping? That's the argument. But when he talks about the recession was unavoidable, I think part of the idea there is that no amount of help during the recession would have been enough, rather than just avoiding it in the first place. Hector says that's the important question. Yes, how much help could they have really given? Yeah. So, I guess since we're on the topic, I don't know how much I really want to get into this. I mean, should I? It kind of helps with the point, so I will. There are some people who... Yeah, Anarchist says it's the trolley problem, essentially, yeah. There's some people who look to the rich, and they're like, oh, they have so much money, why don't they help people? Okay, take one billionaire's money and divide it among everyone in the world. Woohoo, everyone gets $3. How much have they really helped? If they would have just divided up all their money. Yeah, sure, this is politics stream. Of course, it's politics time, yeah. So the concept of, oh, they should just use their money to help other people. How much can they really help, though? Hi, Twitch admin, says Hector. Hector says, could they have gotten 1% of the way towards stopping the recession? Or 90% of the way? We don't know. Get into it, says Hector, yeah. Nazir says, do it. Hector says $3 gets you a 6-inch at Subway. What Subway are you going to? That gets you a 6-inch, $3. What the... Dude, I go to Subway and it's like $7 for a 6-inch. It's fucking stupid. Because I remember $5 footlongs. Motherfuckers. Something investment versus distribution. Yeah. Yeah, Lewis says, what the fuck? $3? Yeah, Sog says, yeah, that's at least $7 right now, yeah. They're backing me up. We've been to Subway. Anarchist's thoughts on this alternative syndicate start pool request. The guy who made that DM me on Discord. I just have not gotten back to him yet. I need to respond to that. I'm not a fan from what I've seen. Wizrad says Derpy Rage. Hector says, I'm Canadian, everything is cheaper here. I'm literally mauling. I will kill to go to Subway. Go to that Subway, says Lewis. Jim says, in a lot of the world, the equivalent of $3 is genuinely a lot of money and would make a huge difference. But for how long? This kind of gets into your other point of, I guess the two big arguments here are purchasing power parity and building public infrastructure rather than just handing out cash. Sure, if I hand out $3, that helps for now. But does that change their situation long term? Next topic. Next topic. Apparently Saga's given us a time limit. 5:30. Which is 17 minutes away. Doom says infrastructure is always the answer. Build more things. Is it though? Is it though? I could get into that. Is it though? But I will not. Hector says, a lot of people on the survey responded that they'd like to see Endless Sky have an official YouTube channel. Thoughts? I mean, you have one set up. Well, at least you have the stream archive. Anarchist says, let me run the channel. The question is, what would we put on the channel? What is there to put on the channel, you know? Hector says an archive channel isn't official. I made it official just now. Lewis says trailers, community posts. We don't make trailers, though. I mean, Sriran has that trailer that we should probably just finish up. Because something is better than nothing at this point, honestly. Pull request updates, that's for GitHub. Community posts, that's for Discord. Wizrad says centralized stream archive channel for all devs. Can we get a Korth chat? No, I hate the Korth. Like I said earlier, we gotta remove them. Anarchist says when we reach 5 million subs, we can make a song. Lewis says I shall send slaves to finish the trailer then. As you're asking for more chat rooms? No. Wurzel's here. Yo, we're wrapping up. He shows up as we are in the last 15 minutes of the stream at most. But hello there. Hope you're doing well. He lives, says Sonic. He does. Quarg chat asks Doom, why? You have alien chat. The Quarg are the most alien of aliens, therefore, alien chat is enough. Azure says this is when Quick joins. Yeah, any second now. Wurzel says, yeah, remember me struggling with studying for like ever since I started contributing? I finally got a degree, so I can leave that all behind me. Congratulations. So what you're saying is, we are so back. Wurzel says, so doing great. Gonna take a few months to get the stress out of my system. That sounds like a good plan. Speaking of stress, somebody mentioned my job earlier. Bro, this past week. Bro. Now people are just talking about random stuff. Wurzel says, I might have to start to look around the Endless Sky repository. When's the last time you played? Is a good question. Because Woofy hadn't played in a long time. I forget what version he said. Did he say like 9.12 or something? Wurzel said not Wurzel. Woofy said he hadn't played in some like long version in a while. And he's like mind blown about all the new stuff that's been added. He's like, yo, this is insane. Who did this? Wurzel says, oh. It's been too long is the answer, isn't it? You read all the patch notes. Well, that's something. But I haven't actually played in. Better than nothing, I suppose. Speaking of patch notes, new release at the end of this month. It'll be the perfect time to start. Rosa says March last year seems to be the last time I made it, last build I made of the game. So it has been a good while. But I doubt I actually played the game. You made the build, but you didn't play it. It'd be like that sometimes. It's like buying a game on Steam, but then not playing it. Which, I've been there. I've been there. Roadrunner says congrats, posting in the Discord stream chat. Congrats on the degree. He says thanks, Roadrunner. Alright, well, I think I'm gonna wrap things up here. Give Sog a couple of minutes to prepare his stream. But as he said, he will be streaming right after this, working on some new content. Rosa says, I was wondering whether I should get back into the art side of stuff, or whether I finally should do the actual thing, the thing I actually do, or actually like study to do, programming. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he says I'll just try stuff and see what sticks. That sounds like a plan. Sog says, honestly, we're pretty solid on the art side of things at the moment. Could use more coders. I don't know if it's so much that we could use more coders as it is that we could use more people reviewing code pull requests. Because we're still sitting pretty high on the number of code pull requests that are just sitting around. Hector says, alright, end the stream so I can start downloading it. You heard it, guys. Came down from the top. We have to end the stream. Don't blame me, blame Hector. It's all on him. So, sorry I had to end it. But it's really out of my hands. Talk to management. But whatever the case, I hope everybody has a good rest of their day, and I'll see you all next time, whenever that happens to be. Goodbye.